Welcome to No Clip, the podcast that's like a book club for people who don't think that books reward them enough for being good at them. I'm Chad Ruthermond.
And I'm Andy Kinnick.
And today, we're going to be talking about Shadows Over Loathing, a game that was developed and published by Asymmetric Publications and was released in 2022 on Windows and Mac OS.
But first, if you can give us a like or a rating, it would be greatly appreciated.
So one, I'm actually kind of surprised that this game's only on PC right now. I guess it did just come out, a few scant months ago. But I felt like West of Loathing, even though we played it on PC, felt very much at home on home console as well. So, I imagine this will probably go to consoles, potentially by the time you're listening to this.
I might be wrong, but I think West of Loathing only ever came to Switch.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, so... And I know I read that this has plans to come to Switch, so...
So it definitely will be there.
Mm-hmm.
So Shadows Over Loathing is a turn-based RPG with sort of an adventure game sort of jive to it. Mm-hmm. It's got elements of like the quest structure and stuff. A lot of it comes down to that.
Yeah, and you could call it a comedy game.
You could call it a comedy game. Don't call it a comeback, though.
Yeah, that's right out.
Not allowed. This game, though, is interesting because it is a follow-up to West of Loathing, which I just mentioned, which in itself was a spiritual successor to a game called Kingdom of Loathing, which, as far as I know, is still playable online in browser.
Yeah, the splash screen you get at the end of the game that says "Thanks for playing" says that you can go play it. So, unless they're lying to you,
or if it shut down in the last 2 months,
yeah,
then you could probably still go play it. And all of these games have certain things in common, but there are pretty vast differences between them. The biggest one, obviously, being that Kingdom of Loathing is an MMORPG, and both West and Shadows are like linear, it's single player RPGs. Linear is maybe the worst term I could use here. It's linear in a sense. It's not as open as an MMO.
Yeah.
But it is more open than a traditional game that a rational person would describe as linear.
It has like a regular RPG structure.
Yeah. So I made the mistake of listening to the West of Loathing episode that we did before coming in here. And it has colored my experience with this game in comparison to the previous one. And I don't know if I want to talk about that right now. I led into it with all that great information that does make it seem like I'm going to talk about it. And I probably will. But I want to get it out up front that I think this game is fantastic. I think that it does a lot of the same stuff that West did correctly, just as good or better, sometimes a little bit worse. And just most of the elements of it are really well done, and the writing in specific is fantastic. So there are a lot of good reasons to play this game, but I would struggle to tell you that there are good reasons to play this game over playing West of Loathing.
Yeah, I re-listened to like the beginning, like maybe 15 minutes of that episode, and was like, man, how far we've come. We sound so low energy, like we're all sick.
I mean, I get that experience every time I listen to any episode on like a rolling 50 episode sort of like block.
For me, it's certain episodes. I just feel like we're like, something's off. Like, we must be tired or something. But anyway, yeah, so... no, but even still, like, I found it hard not to just keep comparing this to West of Loathing while playing. I don't know. I don't want to get too much into it yet.
Sure.
I think your instinct to not just make a bunch of comparisons up front is a good one.
Yeah. It would. I think it would focus us in a place that I don't really want to be. So I want to talk about Shadows Over Loathing specifically and what it is and what it does. and not make the comparison, even though it's going to be kind of hard to do. In Shadows Over Loathing, you go from it's structured in like a chapter format. There's 5 chapters and an epilogue, and you go through and really your objective is just to go place to place and pick up cursed objects and bring them back to an antique store. It's a very simple setup, and it repeats every day. So there isn't really anything new in terms of, like, you're never setting out to do something from the beginning that is different than what you did the day before. The variety in the game comes from the fact that there's a million different random things that can happen to you at any given time, and about 100 side quests on every day. That's not true. That's an exaggeration, but it's a lot. There's a bunch of side quests on every day, and it is going to be how you spend most of your time.
Yeah, it's a very about the journey and not the destination kind of game.
Yeah. Even the destination is kind of a journey in and of itself.
Sure.
So there's a lot that goes on. One of the things that did come back, and this isn't a comparison, just a quantitative fact, is the random encounter thing. So anytime that you travel between areas, you will have a random encounter, which could be anything from a brief conversation to a quick pickup of an item, to combat encounters, item acquisitions, or even bigger events. I got cursed at one point, which was pretty cool. And this is like, these random encounters derail you in such a massive way that it made it feel like I wasn't even really choosing what I was doing at any given time, and was more just following the rolls of the dice. Because, like, I never denied a random encounter. I just always went along with it.
Yeah, I found them to be kind of annoying after a certain point. I don't remember if West of Loathing worked the same way, but, like, it felt like when I wanted that sort of thing, I would choose the wander option on the menu or on the map screen. And that, I found, usually just leads you to, like, a combat encounter or like a random pickup or like something small. And, like, discovering new locations seemed like it happens so much more often when you're trying to go somewhere else. And that always gave me that moment of like, like, I want to go to the new place because that's fun and exciting. But if I don't go to do what I was doing right now, I might never go back and do it. Because this is that kind of game where it might just completely slip your mind.
Yeah.
And you'll just go off and do like 18 other different things instead of the thing that you were doing.
Yeah.
So I feel like it should be reversed. Like, I feel like wandering should, like, lead to discovering new locations more than traveling.
Right. So my understanding of it is that it is exactly the same. I think that they just wait the discovering of new locations to occur more often early. And so early on, you're always going from points of interest, which means that you're always going to get sidetracked to a new location. And then if like later on you're like, I'll wander and see what's happening, most likely you've discovered all the locations,
I guess,
and then end up finding like smaller things or combat encounters.
Yeah. I just know, like, either earlier today or yesterday I was at a location and I wanted to wander, and I tried it like 6 to 8 times, didn't find a new location, and then just went to go do something else and immediately found a new location. It felt like it always worked like that, but maybe I just got unlucky.
Yeah. I mean, I can't say that is my instinct from the way that the game played out to me, but I used the wander button like maybe 5 times through the whole game. For the most part, I was just going from location to location because there's just enough things in the game that keep you moving.
Yeah.
That I never really found it super necessary. I used the wander mostly at the very end of the game because I needed to grind up $1,000. And so I started just wandering, and then I found a new location while wandering, which then got me enough meat to then go do the thing I was doing.
Right.
So Yeah, my experience was that instance of me wandering and finding a new location was the only time in the game that happened. So a bit of a point in your column there. I think like that's evidence potentially, but I don't really know how it works. So how did you feel about the setup of the game? I think not like installing the game and clicking on an icon. What I mean is the idea that this is, whereas Kingdom of Loathing is fantasy, West of Loathing is a Western, this game is set up to be a specifically Lovecraftian seaside town horror adventure. Mm-hmm. How did you feel it approached that in our like intro? Did you feel drawn in by the beginning of this game?
Yeah, I liked the beginning. It seems like it might be a strength of the developer. Writing seems to obviously be a strong suit, and I found that the beginning definitely hooked me. Like it's funny right off the bat with like the magazine stuck to your face to hide what you look like, and the getting gas for the bus little quest felt like not like a vertical slice, but like kind of like it gave you a taste of what to expect, or it's like subversive and doesn't work the way you think it's going to. Like none of the gas pumps work.
Right.
You have to get gas from other places that are silly. So yeah, I think it did a good job of like pulling you in.
Yeah. I mean, I partially asked the question because I played this game when it came out, and then I finished this game last week.
Right.
So there was a pretty big gap in between the first couple of chapters and when I actually finished it, because I didn't want to have to be constantly recalling stuff when we actually recorded the episode. And this obviously being the first episode in March, as we planned. It was like, I remember like being very drawn in by the opening. I think that just like the setup of everything, from the like rainy bus ride to getting to the Murray's Antiques.
Yeah.
All of that really made me say just like, okay, yeah, we should talk about this, if for no other reason than I want to spend like a very long time on this game.
Yeah, and I think actually like a pretty good bit of horror writing in there, where it's like you meet the girl outside of the like barn or farmhouse or whatever it is, like by the cornfield.
Yeah.
And then when you come back through, she's gone, and like she was a ghost.
Right.
Like that's like right up there at the beginning of the game where it's unexpected.
True.
So it kind of like sets the tone.
Yeah, I mean, it sets the tone a little bit closer to Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark than it does to H.P. Lovecraft, but then the rest of the game also kind of follows suit.
Yep, I was gonna bring this up. And I guess this is a good enough place to do it because it came up organically. But I feel like, the theming's not as strong in this. Like West of Loathing, I think, always felt like a parody of a Western, whereas this feels like more nebulous sci-fi weird fiction than it does specifically H.P. Lovecraft.
Right. It feels like the setup that they went with, and potentially sort of like all of the main story beats, are centered in cosmic horror, but everything else in the game is just sort of more generalized than anything else. And like, the fucking West of Loathing had aliens and demons in it, and there are references to the demons from West of Loathing in this game as well, but none like explicitly in the game as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
But this game, where horror is the actual like theme of the game, it tended to be more scattershot. It was all over the place and did a bunch of different things. And sometimes I really like that. One of my favorite side quests in this whole game, barely even counts as a side quest, is you go into a house and a guy's like, you can have some spaghetti and towels, but don't look at my daughter. And you're like, what are you talking about? And then like when the dialogue ends, she's just behind you and she just looks like Samara from The Ring. And then as you walk around, she's just always behind you, and if you turn around, it just fails the quest. Very funny, extremely good. Really has nothing to do with H.P. Lovecraft at all.
No. Funny story about that quest for me is I was talking to him, and I had an engagement ring. I might have had even more than one engagement ring.
Yeah,
It just tells you you can sell them. And like there was like an option to where you could show the ring to him. And I was like, I want to do that, but like I want to do some other dialogue options first. But the one I picked just ended the conversation. She was right behind me, and before I could even think about it, I just turned and looked at her immediately because there was something, that caught my eye. So I just turned to it instinctively, and it immediately failed the quest. And I was like, whatever that Will Ferrell meme, like that escalated quickly. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's really, as far as I can tell. And I'm glad that you had an even worse time of it.
It felt like it happened so naturally that it was like almost intentional that would happen to like a decent percentage of players.
Yeah.
Like they would just look at her instantly.
As far as I know, there's no way to go anywhere without looking at her.
You have to turn around eventually.
Yeah, once you get to the right side of the house, you're fucked. I couldn't interact with anything. I wasn't thinking as clearly as maybe I could have. And that kind of adds... Nothing in this game is, like, outright scary. Mm-hmm. But that kind of a situation where they put a mechanical impetus, you're like, maybe I could get an item or something if I do well enough at not looking at her, makes it, like, tense, which is an emotion nearby horror, adjacent to horror. So... yeah, that's why that always stands out to me, is like that's a really cool bit. And there's tons of these in the game, like very cool little things that can happen. But very few of them are really like a cosmic horror related thing. It's a famously hard to write genre, so I don't blame them.
Yeah.
But there's only like a few things that I think they felt confident enough to go for.
Yeah, I felt like they didn't try most of the time.
Yeah.
Like you go to like a lake and a swamp, and like there's a big chunk of the middle of the game that you can just kind of forget that it wants to have anything to do with H.P. Lovecraft at all.
Right. Which is fine. People generally should distance themselves from H.P. Lovecraft.
Sure. But then there are other like very specific references, so it's kind of like got its hand in a few different whatever jars.
Yeah, a couple of jars, 2-3 pots,
yeah,
a bush, a bird, busy hands.
Yep.
What I'm trying to say. But yeah, but that's the, I guess like there's a plus and a minus to that. The positive is the game picks its battles as far as like when it wants to approach its tone, and it wins those battles because it picks them. There's a lot of very funny dialogue in this game. That is predominantly what the game is. And there are a few moments where the influence really shines through. So that's like the thing that drew me into the game. Like that's why, I mean, it's not why I bought it. If they said the supermarket of loathing, I would have been like, I'm buying it day one.
It's just an extra big bonus,
right? Because
you like cosmic horror.
Correct. Yeah. So there's a bit of a disappointment for me as the game went on, and then I mostly evened out on it.
Mm-hmm. Do we want to
take a break?
Yeah. Do we want to talk more like mechanics, or do you want to talk more writing and scenarios?
We can talk about mechanics. That's fine. If that isn't how you want to divide the thing.
Fine. I think one of the mechanical things that stood out to me right away is that this feels a lot more well balanced mechanically.
Oh yeah.
Like I remember there were this game has these kinds of items too, but in West of Loathing you had these like items like you had a bunch of different kinds of alcohol and like things like hardtack and like things that you could take to like up your stats, and they all stacked. Like there was like pretty much no limits on them as far as I remember.
You had
they would go away
stats.
if you slept, but you didn't really need to sleep.
Right. Yeah, there were 3 stats tied to your main stats that were, I think, stomach, spleen, and liver, and they had a number on them, and that was the number of potions or whatever potion equivalent was, alcohol and food that you could stack at once.
Yeah.
And it was always too high.
And it was broken.
Yes.
Yeah. You could just like fucking steamroll a lot of stuff. And I also remember running out of meat all the time.
Right.
And neither of those things were problems in this one.
Yeah. I think that the economy is a little bit busted in both of these games.
Yeah.
But if... It's weird because, like, if you're looking for a more balanced RPG game, Shadows is your guy. Because it is definitely more balanced than the disaster that West of Loathing was. Both of them, though, are broken. Like, in terms of the player is going to be exceptionally strong by the early mid game, and you will have almost no trouble in combat if you are doing things. Like if you are actively pursuing quests and activities, then you will be a high enough. I mean, you don't even gain levels in this game. You just get perks, and so it really doesn't like it. It scales just very fast, and you hit a plateau really early, which makes it difficult to lose combats.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, oh, you don't level up in this game. And then I was like, well, and then I was sitting making notes earlier, and I was like, well, I mean, you get experience, and then you spend those experience to get abilities, and that's kind of what leveling up is.
It's more or less leveling up, yeah.
So, like, it is weird how, like, the presentation makes it feel like you don't level up. Like, it doesn't give you, like, a level number or anything.
Right.
So,
yeah,
I just found that to be interesting.
It's a very gear-based system. Like a lot of modern RPGs are, honestly. Things like Diablo and even World of Warcraft at this point. The level system is there, but the assumption is that you're just going to hit max level pretty quick, and then everything's based on what you're wearing.
Yep. A lot of RPGs are like that, and like you might not even notice.
Yeah.
Like right away. Like The Witcher 3 I know is like that. Like gear is huge. And even spoilers for upcoming things, God of War.
Also, spoilers for us. We are spoiling ourselves by saying this, but also later Dark Souls games, the gear that you have specifically in weapons.
You don't level it up.
Yeah, and weapons are just way better. Like a higher weapon level is way more important than your actual attribute level.
Right.
It is just like sort of the new thing. That your individual level doesn't matter as much.
Probably easier to design for that, would be my guess.
And it probably is easier to scale upward into infinity for games that are like that.
Yeah.
This game isn't, though. This game really doesn't. There's no scaling upward into infinity, despite how horrifying that would be and unknowable. Yeah.
So one thing I was curious what you thought about is there's a lot of puzzles or like scenarios in this game where like what the challenge is that you need to just like raise different stats to be able to like pass a skill check or whatever. It's like, do you think that's like fun or interesting? Because it feels like an interesting challenge in the beginning when you're not like when you're lower leveled and you're like more like I don't want to like lower my moxie or whatever your main stat is to pump up something else, just in case. So it can feel kind of like a decision or a risk reward thing at the beginning, but then it just kind of becomes, I think, an annoyance. The further you go, like if you can't just get the stats by putting armor on, you have to like eat and drink different stuff. It can be like yeah,
this is too much hassle.
Yeah,
I think I actually have kind of an elaborate theory about this. In that, and by theory I mean I'm reasonably certain I'm just right here. This feels like a holdover from West of Loathing, but because in West of Loathing your stats could get so much higher, that the stat challenges in that game were more of a reward for specializing.
Yeah.
Whereas you can pretty much meet any challenge in this game just by eating shit and putting clothes on. Because it's never going to get higher than, like, I think literally the highest number I'd ever seen in this game on a stat check is 12. Meanwhile, in West of Loathing, there's like things that require you to have 30 strength to do anything. So, so that was like, I think that they ported the system over, but because the numbers were lower, it was harder to reward for specializing, and it was more just there. And I think that they offer you specifically things that are for your traits and class stuff, and eschew all of the other things. Like, I would occasionally get muscle and mysticality checks, but every random encounter I ran into was always a moxie check, and I think with one exception always passed it on my first go around. So it was interesting to see those come back, because they did become just, they're the blade things in Xenoblade 2, where you just have to stop what you're doing, change all your clothes, do the thing, and then put all of your old stuff back on.
The affinity quests.
Yeah, and it got very not fun.
Yeah, grindy.
Pretty quick. Yeah.
Yeah. It just stood out to me. And I don't think, even though like it was more like of a spectacle thing, or like a, you know, you can make your fucking strength 40 or whatever. I still think I didn't really like it in West of Loathing either.
No, I just think it served more of a purpose.
Yeah, for sure.
It was like, if you specialized in a particular thing, you could get around an obstacle that a different player couldn't.
Right, but it's like a player psychology thing that people are just going to go back and like sleep and then pump up the other stat. Like, people aren't just going to like lean into their character and only do the strength checks.
Right.
You're going to try and do everything.
Yeah.
And that kind of makes it not work, in my opinion.
And that was the other problem in West of Loathing, because you could do that.
Yeah.
Like, it was almost impossible to create a stat check so high that any class couldn't clear it.
Yeah.
So, I was a little sad about that. Here's the thing I already know the answer to. Hey, what class did you play?
So I don't remember the name of it specifically, but the jazz one.
The jazz agent.
Yeah. There you go. I played a cowpuncher in West of Loathing, so I didn't want to do the same kind of class again. So I went with the jazz. I forgot it already. Jazz agent. Because the theming is fun. Like, you know, like being a jazz musician is cool. And I did try to like stick to that and like only use instruments as weapons as much as I could. I did use like a gun and a sickle for a little bit.
Right.
But use the bugle you get early on for like a long time.
That was me with the throwing symbol. Spoilers, by the way, I also played the jazz agent, and I also played the snake oiler in the first game, so I've only really played Moxie in these games.
Never did the wizard class. I don't even remember what it is in this one.
Me neither. I remember the bean wizard, but I don't remember what the actual thing is.
And they reference that in this.
They do?
You do need to, from, what was his name, Rufus at the college.
Oh.
It's the one who gives you the whistle to like dispel the bean magic.
I'm mad now because I didn't remember that happening because I played it before and I never dispelled the bean magic in the last chapter.
Yeah, you just have to go back and talk to him. As far as I know, there's no hints that he's the guy that will have it.
You're supposed to remember that that's him.
Yeah, but that's just this game.
Yeah,
like I'm sure I missed like a third of the content easy. But yeah, so yeah, I played the jazz agent and I liked it. It felt like not too much different, but like then playing like a melee class in the first one. But like I did like the focus on like upping your stats and stuff. Like the, what was it, Axe of War or
the
Sacks of War,
Sacks of Violence.
Sacks of yeah. And like the flute one and the jazz hands and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I feel like, so we talked about, I'm going to bring up Xenoblade again. I don't know why. We talked about Xenoblade 3 and how there's a class that I really like, but the game made bad by just the virtue of how it was made. and it's a class that focuses specifically on debuffs. I think the idea for the Jazz Agent was that they wanted you to put a bunch of status effects on people and focus on damage over time and healing over time and just sort of a general war of attrition.
Yeah, that's how it's described to you.
Yeah, and that is very appealing to me. But in the end, I would just win on turn one every single combat without fail. I think the final boss took me 2 turns of combat to win. So it really quickly slid into basically a turn-based tactics game that was really easy.
Did you have an attack that could hit multiple people?
No.
Oh, okay.
Well, other than Sacks of Violence.
Right, okay.
I just had, 9 AP or something as it went on, and then you would just smash everybody.
With pianos and stuff.
Yeah, and then the one last attack that I did would always deal 60 to 70 damage, so I could just kill any one person. And that's, I don't know, I mean, it doesn't suck in the terms of, it's not like it made me not like the game. Mm-hmm. It sucks to me as me because I was missing what I wanted there to be a potential there.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think for me it ended up just being casting buffs mostly, and I didn't really use the debuffs on the enemies half as much.
Right. Yeah.
The the marimba and the dropping the piano, and there was an orchestra thing and blah blah blah.
Yeah, orchestra strike.
Yeah,
Sacks of Violence, and then there was an offhand item that you get pretty early. That's a pen.
Yeah,
that deals muscle, but it also does bleed damage. And so I was always just trying to set up a situation where everyone would die from bleed or be dead already by the end of my turn.
Yeah, I had Molly with me most of the game as my partner or whatever, and she had a switchblade that would give everything bleed, which was pretty good.
Yeah, there's familiars in this game.
Yeah, and
it's weird because they start you with one that's called Ren, who just buffs your stats. It's a random stat every turn.
Yeah.
Who feels useless to me. It feels like the worst one, which is fine, I guess, for the starting.
It wants you to find one that you like to replace it.
Yeah, and I used a bunch of different ones over the course of the game, or at the beginning of the game, and then I found the stink bug, which just did AoE damage, and I said, okay, that helps bring the total amount down that I need. And then I finally found one that did bleed in the last area and used it for the rest of the game. I
never found a stink bug.
Stinky the stink bug. Good dude.
I used the mosquito pretty much the whole game.
Oh, yeah.
He healed you. Which seemed pretty good, and I named him Maurice.
I never renamed anyone. I felt like they had canonical names. Stinky the Stink Bug will go down in history as himself.
The stinkiest stink bug.
As the stinkiest one. And as for my partner, which has a different name in this game, I definitely just used Barker because I liked it.
I accidentally killed him.
Classic.
And didn't have him. It's a very Gary the Goblin sort of thing.
Yeah.
I just ran into him and fought him and then found the dog bowl. And I was oh, fuck. Whoops.
My bad. Yeah.
But, yeah, he looks, and this has to be intentional, but it's something I couldn't not think about while looking at him, because I know I watched you play this a little bit. He just looks like a Demogorgon from Stranger Things.
Yeah, he sure does.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be like a flower.
Yeah.
So,
but we all know.
know.
So is the Demogorgon has a flower petal face.
Yeah, he's got a flower motif.
Yeah.
Barker's literally a flower.
Right.
But that's fine. He's not even very good. He has a move that reduces enemy stats, which I'm sure would be good if they ever attacked me.
Yeah.
But he just bit stuff, but I just liked having the dog around, so I used him a lot.
Yeah.
OB. The Oboe Hobo.
Oh, yeah.
Is the other one that I used until I got Barker. I liked him.
I didn't have access to him because I think I hadn't found the hobo camp yet, so I couldn't send it to him.
Right.
Send him to it. So he just like went away because you had to like get him to leave the park or wherever that is.
Yeah.
And so he just whoop, out of the game for me.
Lame.
Yeah.
As far as I know, none of them are particularly good. Molly's probably the best one.
Yeah, she wasn't bad. She had like a baseball bat that would do like 10 damage and -5 muscle. And she had a machine gun that would only do like 1 hit, but it would be like randomly distributed.
Okay.
It would shoot like 10 times or something and would split up the damage. And then the switchblade.
Right, which I assume is an unlock, because I don't think that I had it when she was in my party.
Yeah, there's like her family home is in, I think, Gray County or whatever it is. And if you go there, she gets it. She has like a little scene.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't get a scene with Barker. I feel like I may have fucked some up.
Yeah, there's different little like not quests, but there's like little vignettes each character has. I think each character has 3. If you do all 3, you can like unlock like a little special ending with them, which I didn't know about until I beat the game. I could have gotten Molly's. Whenever you go through the teleporter thing at the end, you turn around and talk to your partner. It'll give like a little dialogue, and then you can have them do a thing, and then you unlock an achievement for getting their ending.
Okay.
Which I almost booted up the game and did, because I could have, but then I just didn't.
Yeah, I might have had that, but Barker also doesn't speak English, so it would be hard for me to tell. But yeah, I don't know. So all these things sort of add up in combat. Like you have a bunch of party members, and by the end of the game, you got like 50 different skills to choose from, and like items. I didn't really use any of those. I think I used items like early on a bit, and then I used like one item in the last 2 hours of the game at some point.
I used them occasionally. Like if there was a big group of enemies, like sometimes I would like scroll through the whole list to see if I have anything that hit everybody.
Right.
But I mostly didn't use them.
Yeah, because you mostly don't have those kind of AoE items. A lot of single target stuff and like debuff removal is what I found. And man, I didn't even sell anything really in this game either, because I never was out of money.
Yeah, same. There was a point early on where I sold 2 coat hangers and then regretted it immensely. Because up until that point, I hadn't needed them. And I think the description says, like, I just sell them.
Oh, right.
And so I did, and then I went to, like, a cave where I needed to, like, open a car, and I was like, you need a wire coat hanger. I was like, fuck. And I went around to all the shops to see if I can find who I sold it to, and the game doesn't work like that. They don't keep the things in their inventory that you sell to them.
That makes sense.
So I was just out 2 coat hangers, and I was kind of mad about that. But after that, I found like I was never short on meat and never sold anything again.
Right. Yeah, it's real weird that way. Like it doesn't it doesn't like have a reason to interact with a lot of the systems that it has, but it has so many systems. Mm-hmm. You almost feel bad. You're like, somebody worked on this. Like I should do these things, but the game doesn't give you a lot of incentive to engage with it in that way.
Yeah, there was one part early on, like as part of a quest, you needed to like pay off the mob or something to get into a building, and then I had to you had to like, go and build up like enough meat to pay them. Or I think you can maybe fight them if you don't want to do that. Right.
I think I worked for the mob at that point.
Oh,
so I don't think I had to do that.
Okay.
Or maybe if it was that early.
I feel like it was the first day.
Oh, okay. Then maybe it was something else. Once again, that was a long time ago for me.
There's probably another way around it as well, and I just don't know what that was. But yeah, then I had to go and like raise the money, and like that was really the only time that I ever had to worry about it.
Yeah. I did at the very end of the game. there's a quest where you have to, in an echo of the Ghost Town quest from West of Loathing, where you had to keep going back and forth and getting a form signed, you had to figure out how to get a functioning form to turn in to pay your debt. And I liked this quest significantly better, but at the end you just have to pay the notary 1,000 meat, and I had spent all of my meat on crackers at the prison. So I had to go farm the only time in the game when I had to go farm money. And at one point during that, I thought I could go sell some stuff. And I just went, nah, it's easier to do this. I thought. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's, I think probably the reason that I didn't bring up the mechanics of the game almost immediately is it's obvious that it's not the focus of the game.
Yeah.
It's not why the game exists. It's not to have a good, balanced RPG system. It's a delivery vehicle for jokes. And the combat, I think, ultimately fell on the too easy for me to care that much about side. A lot of my preparation for everything was always just take a weapon and just add all the stuff to it. And then say, good enough, and roll with that for like 6 hours.
Yeah.
Like, after the second day, I really didn't change my equipment at all either. Like, I stayed with the same weapon, the same stuff, until the last day. And then I stayed with all the same equipment, just had a different gun.
I kept switching things up, but I didn't really need to. I was just, because this game is this game, every time I got a thing, I wanted to open the menu and see what it did.
Oh, yeah.
So I ended up, switching out different things. But, I got, I think it's day 3, or whenever you go to the swamp, I think it's the 3rd day, I ended up getting a maggot hat.
Oh, yeah.
That, upped 3 different stats, and I just wore that the rest of the game.
Yeah, I had the stone frat cap, which is just a baseball cap that, I think it's by default is +5 physical defense or something.
Yeah.
And I just taped it up and made it +7, and I said, that's probably better than anything else.
I couldn't wear equipment that didn't boost my moxie. I had to have everything boost my moxie.
You may have even had a higher moxie than me at the end of the game.
Probably.
I don't know.
I think it was 12.
Mine was also 12.
Oh, well, there you go.
I may have found a different cocktail ingredient or something to improve it more.
I never used the cocktails.
Oh.
Yeah.
Big mistake.
Much like in the first game, I feel like I never drank alcohol either. I was like, hardtack is good enough.
You're a teetotaler in Loathing games.
I really like the bar side quest where you have to you bring back ingredients to the bar. I think it's inclusion. I just never really, it never felt necessary.
Sure.
It felt like that, an extra layer. Whereas I always had those items to eat and drink to boost stats. That I don't know. I just never thought about it.
I mean, that's fair. I didn't use the way I liked the room setup. I liked that quests would give you a tangible reward that you could go and look at and that would do something. So I don't know how you approached this quest because I know there's 8 different ways to end this one, but I tricked the leader of the Thin Lizzy gang out of her throne and took it back to my room. And so every day I would get up and I'd go play fisticuffs with a scarecrow and drink a soda out of a fridge and then sit in the throne, and the throne gave me a moxie boost with the heavy as thy hand perk. But I like that it was a thing that you had a ritual. You would get up and you would interact with everything, and then part of mine was just go to the bar and order a rum, cola, and bitters, which is a drink that I would have in real life, unlike the majority of the drinks that would be available to me at that bar.
Yeah.
So it was a very quick way of like regaining the stats that you lost that didn't require a bunch of inventory scrolling a la West of Loathing. So one thing that I thought was a good positive here.
Yeah, I don't remember what I did with the Thin Lizzy quest. She still had her throne at the end. I did not have that in my room. I did have the colas and the scarecrow thing though.
Yeah.
Which I did interact with. But yeah, I just kept forgetting the bar existed until I got an ingredient to take back to it.
Did you notice that there's a couple at the bar? And
like the married couple?
Yeah, and they were on a first date, a second date, a third date, a fourth date, a fifth date, and then their honeymoon.
Yeah.
It was just all at the same table at the bar.
I didn't keep up with it the whole time, but like I did notice they were married at the end.
Yeah, it's a funny little visual gag that kept me coming back to the bar. What happened?
Yeah,
Are they still together? Will they, won't they?
I also liked Gabby dancing as well. I would go in there and like look around and stuff when I would drop off ingredients. Yeah.
Okay, well, speaking of funny visual gags, there's, I don't know, might be one on screen right now.
Odds are likely.
Odds are high that there might be one.
If you're watching on YouTube.
And like an audio gag, we should take a break.
After the break.
After the break.
Oh God, that was the worst one yet.
Or is it the best one yet?
No.
Welcome back. So we talked a bit at the end of the first half there about how unbalanced the combat is in this game. And I think that is... It's funny because it is more balanced than West of Loathing, but still feels way too easy to do anything for it to be the focus of the game. So in lieu of the combat being the focus of the game, instead the focus turns to the writing, the scenario design, and everything that surrounds that, characters, locations, all that. So I wanted to get your opinion on the day-to-day, which location did you find to be the most interesting?
I think I liked the swamp the best.
Me too.
Yeah, it had like the most weird things. Like it felt like the most creative of all the locations.
Yeah, and it also had my favorite, I think, like mega quest in the game, which was the monster club.
Oh yeah,
with all the little kids. That one was very funny to me. It had the tree boy who was a boy and then he became a tree.
Yeah.
That one's great too. Swamp rules.
Yeah, the one with the frogs.
Oh yeah, dude, that's so good. And the worst one? Not the worst quest, the worst area.
At the college.
Yeah, it's the college.
Yeah.
I'm glad that this was unanimous.
Yeah, the college... Well, I think it's a great idea to put a college in a Lovecraft theme game.
Yeah.
It would help to make it feel like it's not a modern college. But it's the layout. It's confusing to navigate the college. It's the thing that sucked about it.
Yeah, and like that seems like it's sort of the point, but that's a bad point.
It kind of feels, like that's the joke almost.
Mm-hmm.
Like you walk in and it's got the infinite hallway and the finite hallway.
Right.
And then like you have to like go through the doors. Like once you know how it's laid out, like once you have it memorized, which I did get there eventually, it's not so bad, but yeah, it's very unintuitive.
Yeah.
And then you look at the map, it's like it's supposed to have a layout that makes sense.
Yeah, you're like,
hold on. What?
Because it's now being translated into the flat 2D plane, and it just doesn't work the way that you would want it to, which is unfortunate. Though I will ask, I guess, if you remember what your major and minor was.
Oh God. My major was, I think, in botany or whatever, the plants. And then the minor was in, God, what was it? Something acoustics or it was something funny.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was. The one that was based around music.
Yeah. I think I also had botany as my major, and then did astronomy and spiders.
Okay.
Were my minors. And spiders is a great one because it all takes place essentially in one room, and it's just combat over and over again. It's very simple to do. And then the astronomy minor, this is why I think you having a different minor path than I took is emphasizing that I think the college quest part is just not very good.
Yeah.
Because both of us did different minors and both of us just still didn't like the college. Because the spiders was boring because it was just, it was funny, but it was just combat. And then the astronomy one was just looking in a telescope and then coming back and putting down what you didn't see there. It was really a big do-nothing sort of quest, and the whole scenario left me bored and unentertained.
Yeah, it was called meta acoustics.
Meta acoustics.
It was my minor. Yeah, I actually forgot that you could pick different things.
Oh, right.
Which I think also speaks to like it not being the best designed quest.
Yeah, it really does, and it's like you get no information beforehand. You can't like make a reasoned decision. You have to just kind of like pick what you think sounds interesting. Because it's not like any of them really indicate what you'll be doing in them. So it's not like your character build really makes you choose what to do. It's just sort of random.
Yeah, it has to be unexpected so that there can be maximum jokes.
Right, that is true. I did see the spiders joke coming, though.
Yeah.
That study of spiders was just fighting spiders. But it's, I don't know, I guess it's still pretty good. Yeah, and so it all sort of hinges on the writing. And I even feel like the writing in the college, like you mentioned, they obviously wrote it like it's a modern college.
With the frat houses and...
Yeah, and everything. There's a diner there
Yeah.
that has a bit of a hub of information, but not that much, really. And Lovecraft colleges were all like the scholarly libraries and shit, and people scouring the Necronomicon or whatever.
Yeah.
So unfortunate that one was there.
Yeah.
But that's all I really have to say about it. Interesting that we both agree on these things. What about the... I'm doing that thing again. Every time we talk about a game like this is kind of a topic of conversation in and of itself.
Yeah, get meta. We'll take what we learned and apply it in meta acoustics and apply it to this conversation.
Because it is a podcast.
Yeah.
This is sort of applying your meta acoustics minor by talking about the game in a podcast.
Yes.
And... whenever we talk about a game like this, there's this temptation, because we do like the game. We came off of it saying, like, we enjoyed the things about it that we enjoyed about West of Loathing a lot. And it leads you to just go and tell jokes from the game that you liked. And... it's not good for analysis. It makes it hard for me, as somebody who doesn't engage with a ton of comedy, I think, to come up with some kind of like what makes this good. When I was given a map of a bunch of different areas and they were never a map, it was always something else. It made me laugh with my lungs and mouth. And it's hard for me to, like, really convey that in a sense that is, like, productive.
Yeah, I think it's just, the way I would describe it is kind of similar to how when we talked about WarioWare. I think it's just really good at being unexpected. Even if there's, like, a feeling of like, oh, I kind of see where this one's going, it usually throws you a curveball. And there's usually like references when you don't expect them. Like like plenty of games like this, I think would be tempted to make way more references, and this one only does them every once in a while. And like you'll just stumble across a place on the map that's just called Melrose Place, like out of nowhere, and that's really funny because the game doesn't normally do stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think it's just really good, really clever writing that's really good at being unexpected.
True. Also, it did make it's I think the games industry as a whole is finally coming to terms with the fact that they've all been outdone and that there's only one good game in existence, and that's, of course, Bloodborne.
Right.
And this game...
Bergenworth is referenced.
Bergenworth is referenced, and also there's a Hunter's Dream you can visit.
Someone says, like, a good thing your bed doesn't do that in the waking world.
Yeah.
Like, on one of the, like, little interstitial bits when you go to sleep.
There's just so much Bloodborne here.
Mm-hmm.
And also it's Bloodborne is referenced along with a bunch of other games that don't matter as much as Bloodborne in God of War.
Yeah.
There was a reference to Bloodborne in fucking Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
Was there?
Yeah, there's there were blood-starved beasts, except they were
like the localization team.
Yeah, it was obviously local. They were like the potato-starved beasts or some shit. The spud-starved beasts.
Oh, there you go. That's pretty funny, actually.
Yeah.
I remember I found a Bloodborne reference in Hyper Light Drifter. I thought was pretty cool. Like in a cave, there was just somebody doing the make contact gesture. It was like a body that was like crucified or whatever.
Yep.
Thought that was pretty cool.
I mean, Bloodborne obviously makes the most sense here because they're coming from the same
cosmic horror.
Yeah, the same source material. But I agree, it's interesting the way that the writing is. There are a lot of things that I felt like probably were references that I didn't get.
Oh yeah, you can just feel that.
Yeah. They're like things that you like anticipate a punchline and then don't receive a punchline, and it makes you go, dude, am I just missing the punchline?
Yeah.
That is, I've seen that several times in this game.
That's part of the tone, I think, though, too. Like the ones that you do get stand out, and it gives you the sense that there's probably other things that you aren't getting. It almost kind of reminds me of, like, watching a movie as a kid or something, and, like, knowing you're not getting a lot of the jokes.
Yeah.
But, like, you still like it anyway.
That's true.
Yeah, like, it definitely has a similar, like, nostalgic feeling like that to me.
I still feel like I don't get any of the jokes in movies.
But for different reasons. They're just too stupid.
Yeah, exactly. I've ascended beyond it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to say necessarily about, like, the writing. I think It's Good pretty much covers it. It has a lot of charm, and it did keep me playing to see just essentially... this is one of the few games that will utterly bombard you with dialogue. In fact, I will say one of two games, this and Disco Elysium, that will bombard you with dialogue, and I will not skip any of it. Like, I'm going to read every drop of content that you give me, because there's always some gold in there.
Yeah, and it's more palatable in this, I think, because the language is simpler
than
in Disco Elysium. But yeah, it is a lot of reading. I think another thing is that the writing it's so layered, and like a lot of different things like crossover in ways that are like unexpected. So like I just think that the scope is impressive too, like the amount of it and how it like the way it brings the world to life, I think, is impressive. Yeah,
I think, and that does kind of lead into one of the comparisons to West that I want to make here. In that I think that the quest structure of West of Loathing was much more interesting. There's a lot of interconnectivity between areas in West of Loathing, and Shadows is much more contained.
Yeah.
It's like each level is mostly going to relate to other things within the same zone. And there are definitely exceptions to that. There are a few places where you have to leave and go somewhere else. We just talked about the Bean Wizard thing being a thing that you had to go back to the college to get. But it did disappoint me a little bit for the lack of complexity. It made the whole game experience feel a lot more straightforward than West did. But it did also, I think, allow the writing to be more consistent in each thing. There's a lot less having to somehow clue the player in on what they're forgetting, and a lot more just straightforward paragraphs about stuff that happened. So I think it's a bit of a good thing and a bit of a bad thing. As far as for the longevity of the game, I'd never really had the urge to go back and clean up the quest that I didn't finish in this game, whereas I did in West of Loathing.
Yeah, I feel similarly. Like, the difference in the structure is something that stood out to me right away. I just think, like, West of Loathing setup where it's just like, it's the new frontier. Like, you have a blank map of the wild fucking West. And it's just like a blank sheet of paper, and you just like go around and you just discover places. Which I think would have worked really well for this game. Like, it's like adventuring into the unknown.
True.
But yeah, when they handed me the map, it was just on a cocktail napkin. Like, there was like a feeling of disappointment.
Yeah.
But I mean, it ends up not mattering. It's just like, it's a different structure. Yeah, it's like almost like it's set up with like 4 or 5 different like hub areas.
Yeah,
they're like smaller and like can be more contained, as you said. And I ended up not liking that structure as much, but like, it's not that big a deal,
right?
And like, you don't really want them to do the exact same thing again.
True. I think my biggest issue with it, and it's a small issue, but it's my biggest issue that I have with it, is that I think they took something that was one of the main strengths of West of Loathing and replaced it with something simpler, whereas they kept stuff like the stat check requirement puzzles that were less engaging. Though I guess those are more universally applicable, so it's like easy to just throw some of those in. Like, oh, here's an alternative thing. If you get high moxies, you can crawl through this fence or whatever. So I don't know. It's a little bit of a...
Yeah. I also like feel like one of the things I really remembered about West of Loathing was like there were a couple of like major like side quests that kind of ran throughout the whole game that it felt like this game kind of lacked. Like there was like the alien menace and the necromancer tower and like the cow demons and stuff.
Yeah, the good quests that were great.
It felt like I missed those.
Yeah, this one really just had like finding cocktail ingredients.
Yeah,
which isn't nearly as I don't know, enthralling. I gave up on it almost immediately. I only just like picked them up when I saw them.
Yeah.
I never like went to the guy to ask where things were and figure out the clues.
I actually didn't remember you could even do that.
Oh yeah, there's a guy you can buy him a beer and he'll give you a hint where another ingredient is.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that.
There's also
I just picked them up
code.
when I found them. Yeah, I actually really like the hobo code thing.
Yeah.
I think, like, giving you, like, the hobo camp and, like, sending NPCs to it, and then, like, the number of them that you send, like, increases your hobo code knowledge, and you can get these little hints.
Right.
Or, like, other little fun things in the world. I thought that was cool.
Yeah. It was good. It got hints. You got hints. You got straight up just, like, stuff for doing it.
Like, look behind this thing to get 400 meat or whatever.
One of my favorites was a bit where you just said, ask this lady for a treat. And the hobo code requirement was off the fucking scale. So I kept coming back over and over again. I was like, what is this? 17? No, I'm not at 17 yet. I'm at like 14. And I kept finding more people up in the ranks, and then I finally get it. And the reward was like a breath mint or something. I was like, that paid off pretty much as I should have thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked the overarching stuff that was in the game. I do just wish it was more involved, I guess.
Yeah. Also, I feel like the last area, I can't remember what it was called.
Government Valley.
Yeah, Government Valley. How did I forget that? The prison, the jail, feels really tacked in there.
It sure
it's like
does.
The whole area is just like little combat zones, where
no, it wasn't.
Well, I mean, each screen that you could go to, there were like the phones, and then there were like enemies there that you could fight. Like that's all it was.
Okay, I got confused.
And then there were like the 3 tower things that you had to destroy. And then the prison.
The prison.
That's just there. It just felt like they were like a quest that they had designed and didn't know where to put it.
Right. That's fair, yeah. It seems, because I think what its actual purpose is just to take your money and turn it into something that you might actually be able to use.
Yeah.
So there's like, in each cell block, there's like somebody who will sell a weapon for your class and a stat upgrade for that class. And I know there might be some other shit. And so, like, I went in and got, like, the perk. And I got all the perks. And, like I said, I spent all my money on crackers. Because I did go in and just buy all the gift certificates and then trade them for all the stuff.
Right.
Because I was curious and wanted to know what was going on with it. And then I ran out of money. Oopsie daisy. And so, I agree, though. It feels very out of place. It feels weird that it is just there in the world that had been set up. It's weird because that is the one area that I think actually evokes fear, not like primal shit in your pants fear, but it's eerie. It's
like an abandoned place.
That seems important, right? And so it actually did hit that note, and then the prison is not like that at all. It has a janitor. So it really is just like this one thing that stands out. I agree with you on that. The phones were kind of creepy too. They did a good job with the last area, I think. It makes me kind of resent the prison a little bit more now. now that you brought it up.
Yeah.
I kind of overlooked it before, but damn.
So one thing we haven't talked about is relating to that structure. You are working for, is it your grandfather?
Your uncle.
Your uncle's little business or whatever.
Antique store,
where you have to go and find these cursed relics.
Yeah.
It's like your main quest. And then you take them back to this machine where you can decurse them or uncurse them. And I was just wondering what you thought about those sequences.
I'm glad that you brought this up because I really did somehow
forget about it.
Yeah, like just when we sat at the table. It's interesting because this is like, I loved them. They were like one of my favorite parts of the whole game. They're the most complicated puzzles, for the most part, with a few exceptions. I never did figure out the maze. There's got to be some secret to getting that cat. I just couldn't do it.
I got the cat. You gotta buy a saucer of milk from the milkman, and then take it back to the little girl whose cat it is, and then she'll put it out, and the cat will come to her.
All right. I'll log back on and do that. Then we can finish the podcast after.
You were supposed to give the barrel of milk to, which I had completely forgotten about, and I bought it and just never gave it to him.
Well, you had a lot of money.
Yeah, I don't think after a certain point, I don't think I ever had like less than 5,000. Okay, and I would just buy whatever I came across.
I thought I had functionally infinite money when I hit like 2,500. That's the highest I ever got. Yeah. But I did spend it at like every opportunity.
Yeah.
So
one thing that this game has to kind of mitigate being low on meat, like in West of Loathing, is there are like in pretty much every area, there's like one place where you can just fight infinite enemies.
Yeah.
So we didn't mention that. But.
True. And yeah, it's like it's there for that purpose. I guess technically you could grind experience.
Yeah.
But
I would always come across that and be like, is this an infinite waves of enemies? And then we'll just fight them for like too long before leaving.
Yeah.
Be like, is there an end to this?
I always wanted that because there's at least one that actually does end after like 3 or 4. I think it was like the fairies or something. You can do it like 4 times and then it ends, but you can come back the next day and do it again.
I kept thinking that the mushroom cave.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's just like the entrance to the cave is just covered in mushrooms. I kept thinking, like, I've got to be able to, like, kill all the mushrooms and go in the cave, right? Nope.
There's a tent with flies in it, and every time that you win a combat encounter, it says that the number of flies decreased by and then a number. And I'm like, is that just a randomly generated number, or is there actually an end point to this? I never pushed them so far that I can confidently say one way or the other.
Yeah.
Anyway, I loved those decursing scenes.
Yeah.
The first one, with the woodsman and the trees that are like, sprechen not of this, is amazing. It is terrifying the first time that you go in. It's probably the first part of the game, maybe the only part of the game, where I was like, ooh, this is like real horror. Like the creepy tree things and talking about blood in a dialect I can't fully understand. And there's just like a pool of blood with a dead tree in it, probably sap actually, because he's a tree. I loved it. I was like, this is outstanding. I was killer. And then I got deeper into the game and they more became jokes.
Yeah.
But the challenge of each of them kept ramping up more and more. And it ends with that scarecrow segment that I think is fucking genius, except it takes a little bit too long. So yeah, I thought those were great. I am ashamed of myself that I did not mention them earlier.
Yeah, I don't know if I thought the first one was scary, but
I'm a big man.
Yeah, I am a bigger man than you. It is documented. But I did think, like, you go in and you think it's gonna be that like philosophical problem where he's like, I never lie, and blah blah blah. We all know it. But then it like doesn't actually do it. It's like obvious who the culprit is. So like it going in, it being mysterious, and then like feeling the pressure of like, oh fuck, I'm gonna have to work through this problem because I never remember the answer. Like that made me like stressed. So like I did think it was like an effective like tonal shift.
Not creeped out at all by the big trees?
Not really. I was more just like, I just thought they were cool. Like the whole like woodsman thing, and then like they're like tree ents. Like it felt more like fantastical to me than scary.
Yeah,
like
fantastically scary.
Like a fable or something.
Fair. But yeah, I mean, fair enough.
Yeah. But like, no, they were very like surreal and cool. I agree. And the scarecrow one at the end, I feel like the places you spawn in after you're killed shouldn't be random.
Oh, I agree so much.
Yeah, that's my one gripe with that.
Yeah, it would take much less time if they just went in sequence.
Yeah, I feel like it goes on a little too long and starts to lose some of its effectiveness.
Yeah, especially like because it's weird because like the thing that is supposed to be scary about that section is that after an indeterminate period of time, you just die, and then you spawn somewhere else. And so
to try and keep everything in mind.
Yeah, and like have that anticipation, but it gives you the option to skip ahead, to taunt the scarecrow and move forward, and then it goes from being creepy or potentially creepy into just being tedious, like almost
like
instantaneously.
I need to get back to the fucking train.
Yeah, what am I doing? Paperwork here, trying to get the lawnmower built. It's weird. But I do like it. I still like the section. I just think it is weird.
Yeah.
The train one, I also will say, was a little unintuitive, that you had to piss the guy off in order to actually complete it.
Yeah.
Because, like, I put the effort in and whatever and figured out the car dunce theory.
Yeah.
That is the correct one. And then I didn't succeed. I like left and came back, and I tried to look for clues, which worked before with the Latin books.
Yeah.
And then when I came back in, I was like, I didn't find anything else. And so eventually I just had to like look it up. I was like, why is this not right? And they were like, just say the wrong thing a few times.
They say the most ridiculous thing. I had to look it up too.
Okay. I was like, because that doesn't make any sense to me. It gives you no indication that that's the solution to it. So it was a little bit upsetting. Did you do the dollhouse puzzle?
Dollhouse puzzle. I don't think so.
It was other than the train puzzle.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was the hardest one in the game.
The one with the guy who was locked in the vault. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and you have to, like, basically figure out that he's...
like a sequence.
The sequence is, like, the order that he does things in the day. And I felt very smart and, like, a cool dude for figuring it out. And then I really got brought to my knees by the fucking train puzzle, and it made me really not like it very much. But all the other ones I thought were really good. Barring the couple of complaints that I've mentioned, I think that those segments are really well done.
Mm-hmm.
Well done.
I thought it was one of my favorite jokes in the whole thing that the lawnmower doesn't work, and the solution is to take it to the coach for him to motivate the lawnmower to work.
Yep.
I thought that was very funny.
It was extremely good, yeah. And also, it took me there. Maybe it does this every time. Maybe you can vouch for me.
It took me straight there.
Same.
After, yeah.
And when it clicked for me that that's what it was doing, I was like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I ended up using that lawnmower just for narrative reasons as my weapon at the end of the game.
Nice.
I turned it into a gun that did fire, poison, and bleed. And I was like, this no longer resembles what it's supposed to be, but whatever. Unless you have any, like, other notes, do you want to talk about the ending of the game?
Just real quick, I wanted to mention that all the shoes make you do different weird things.
Oh, yeah, it's a classic shoes.
It's a classic shoes.
It's a classic shoe. No, I was thinking... In West of Loathing, they had the ridiculous walk mode.
Yeah.
Which is like an option that you could toggle on. Also, shout out, not gonna fucking drone on about it. The options in this game have funny things in them as well. But it was an option you could turn on. And I liked the shoes solution because I could pick the one that didn't make noise.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of vampire floating.
Vampire boots.
Yep.
Those are the ones I used too. I had the ones that just made like chimes when you walked, like it came off like a goblin, for a while, which I thought was pleasant enough. But then when I got the vampire boots, I was like, here it is.
Yep. This is the best one.
Yep.
I liked that one. The ones that I used the most, that one, there was a drum roll skates. I just liked the walk of it. And the extra wide gait where you just, your legs are way, you look like the protagonist from Blasphemous with his nice wide stance. Yeah, let's talk about the ending of the game.
Yes.
Big spoilers here, guys. If you've listened for an hour and a half...
Sound the spoiler klaxon.
Sounding the spoiler klaxon now. Wee woo. So when you get to the end of the game, there's like these series of dream sequences that sort of tell the story around your antagonists, who are very ill-defined for most of it, which is good for the style of game that this is. When you finally get through Government Valley, there's a boss fight with Poindexter, and then the introduction and boss fight, sort of, with the president, the shadow president, who is the ultimate
in the
villain.
Black House.
In the Black House. And this one was interesting. First of all, the Poindexter fight, did you successfully beat his first phase without combat?
Yes.
Okay, I also did, and the writing of it was immaculate. I thought it was
good.
Real funny, action-packed, kept me reading. And then did you fight his second phase?
Yeah.
Same. We did everything exactly the same in this game. And yeah, he died. He never attacked me. He died before he got a chance. That's just how this worked at that point in the game. And then when you get to the second part, it gives you a very obvious, like, this is the end of the game, point of no return thing. And then you jump in. And so I don't actually know what happens if you complete the optional stuff, because there's like a gateway that indicates to you that you can't use it because you didn't complete everything. And I said, well, I'm not worried about that. And then the game gives you the option to just surrender and end the game that way, or fight the final boss, which I did. Was that roughly your experience?
Yeah, I had to fight the final boss a couple times. I couldn't successfully kill everything the first turn as well as you.
I did have to do 2 turns on the final boss.
But yeah, I think the thing that the Shadow President is working on is like related to your partner quest. If you have it, like that's when you turn around and talk to them and they can interact with it, I think. Don't quote me on that. That's just, I think, what happens. Because I did look through the achievements because I only got 1. And like there's like an achievement for each character ending. Like apparently each one of them has like a thing they can do at the final boss.
Okay.
And it was like Molly saved the universe. I didn't get it.
Okay.
I didn't get that achievement because I just fought the final boss. So I think that's what happens with that.
Right.
As far as I know. But yeah, so I lost to the final boss, and you get the bad ending if you do that. And then, then I eventually beat it.
Yeah. That's interesting that you said that about the achievements. This is also non-content bad talk.
Yes.
But I was concerned, because I was playing this on Steam Deck, and I never got an achievement when I had it plugged into the TV. And then I played it in handheld mode, and I did get an achievement, the one for completing the Monster House.
Yeah, I missed one of those quests. Like, I just didn't turn it in, I think.
Probably, yeah. But I was like, is there like a weird bug where if you have this plugged into a television, it won't give you achievements? Because I had that problem with another game.
I think it's just one of those games. Like I looked at West of Loathing, and I think I only had 3.
Oh, okay.
So I think it's just one of those games. It's like the achievements are actually achievements, like things that most people won't do.
That's probably like a hard stance that they take. They're like, we're not putting in any achievements that aren't achievements to get.
Yeah.
Which I guess respect. Or if I'm 16, I hate you. I gotta get my gamer score up.
So, yeah, I thought about booting it up and doing the Molly thing, but then I just didn't.
Just haven't done it, yeah.
Yeah, but the one that I did get was like pulling off the perfect heist.
Oh yeah, I got that one as well. But yeah, so that was the ending of this game, I think, is the thing that most sort of embodies like the idea of the cosmic horror, because it is there. I mean, they make whenever you do a visual medium Lovecraft thing, you have to put in the line, it's just what my brain is making me see, so that I can comprehend the unfathomableness of the thing in front of me. But fighting 2 glowy, transparent eyes and a big mouth was pretty cool, I gotta say.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say the opposite.
Oh, no.
I thought that was lame.
Well, that's the whole first part. Because it is lame that they had to do something.
Well, what I expected them to do is there are enemies that are like just black with like the star texture.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to have some kind of like amorphous blob with that texture that you fought.
Right.
It's like an eldritch monster thing.
I feel like they did that too much already.
Yeah, I guess. But like that just like, that felt like the cosmic, I can't comprehend what these really are enemies. So
yeah, and I mean that is sort of what the purpose, and that's what Poindexter did well. Is he showed up in several situations.
They had the texture on it.
They had that texture, and they used that as like, I don't know what they were actually implying, which may have been intentional.
Yeah,
but they're like just shadow beings that didn't really have a clear origin.
The beings out of space.
Exactly. Not to be confused with the beans out of space, which are also in this game.
Yeah, I like that he like showed up in your dreams and stuff too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought all that was well executed cosmic stuff. And then he turns into like a big dragon.
Man, he sure does. Did you visit the H hole?
Oh yeah.
You were there when I named my character. I named my character Hopip Torres.
Oh, right. I didn't remember that.
But after a Pokemon and a name that the game gave me as an auto-generated thing. And the H hole...
Oh, you could throw yourself in?
You can throw yourself into it, and for the rest of the game, I started every combat on fire.
Nice. That's pretty cool.
And it changes your name. I was Lopip Torres at the end.
Nice.
I had to mention that because it is a good joke.
That is funny.
Do we have funny thoughts?
My funny thoughts are, yeah, I mean, this game was good. If you've played West of Loathing, like, you kind of know what to expect. I will say, like, it does just kind of feel like West of Loathing with a different coat of paint on it, though, which is fine. You know, like, if we weren't doing it for the podcast, I wouldn't have even thought to care about that. You know, like, it just, looking at it with a critical eye, that stands out.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I kind of like the structure a little bit less. Like, I think that, like, more open, exploring a blank countryside, kind of stumbling across things just worked a bit better. But that being said, like, you know, the game is just as funny. The game's just as creative for the most part. And, like, yeah, it's fun to keep. It's easy to put a lot of time into. Like, you always want to see what's going to happen next. It's always easy to just keep saying, like, oh, I'll go to one more place. I'll, like, go to one more place. I'll do one more side quest. You know, it's fun and pleasant to play, and exactly in the way that, like, you know, that you want it to be. Mm-hmm. It's a fun, good time, and I enjoy my time with it.
Yeah. Sam, what are we talking about? It's... yeah, Shadows drew my eye by virtue of being the follow-up to West of Loathing, but also just by being a Lovecraft thing. I was excited at the prospect of this team tackling horror, and especially given that horror and comedy are so commonly crossed. It is a classic genre fusion, maybe the most classic next to a dramedy. And to me, it does feel, like you said, like West of Loathing with a new coat of paint. The settings are different, but the action is not. You are doing the same kind of things in the same kind of way as has been happening in the Loathing games since time immemorial. So I ended up, I want to say, a little bit disappointed that the game didn't go further with its premise or just with generally anything, like just amping things up a little bit more. But I love the game. Like, it's still a game. Any game that is like West of Loathing is going to be a game that I enjoy. And that this is that. It is like West of Loathing 2. It takes place further in the future. Which is always appealing to me. The further out of the past we get, the more I'm going to be into it. So there's a lot here. And if you haven't played any of these games, literally pick any of them, and you'll have a good time with it. Mm-hmm. And if you have a really good time, wait a couple of years and play one of the other ones, because there's always going to be a time when this is going to hit the spot. And this is, I think we waited the appropriate time. Thank you for listening to No Clip this week.
What are we talking about next time?
Next time, we're going to be talking about God of War Ragnarok. I paused because I forgot the word, and then it made Ragnarok? It sound like I did a dramatic reading of it, which was not intentional.
I feel like you forgot the most memorable word ever created.
I did, yeah. Oops. So, you know, come back. You'll see my enthusiasm will match that next time. Until that time, you can find us. All of our contact information is on our website at noclippodcast.com. There you can find our email address, our Twitter accounts, the YouTube channel, and you can listen to any of our previous episodes, including ones on West of Loathing or on other RPGs.
I feel like we've played other like funny games that like I feel like we've had that conversation about like comedy games before.
That's true.
And I can't think of what they were in reference to.
We did talk about a funny game called... I got nothing. Get out.
Hypnospace Outlaw.
Oh, that's a comedy game.
Yeah.
Dujana. Hilarious.
So funny.
Yeah. Wow. Big energy to end this one off with, huh?
I threw a curveball. I'm sorry. I derailed everything.
Yeah, derail.
I derailed the Orient Express.
If you're on the Orient Express
Mm-hmm.
and it derails, make sure you try and steer it into the like button.
Make sure that you tell the detective all the wrong information so that he gets mad and kicks you off the train, where you will land on the like button.
There it is. And scene.
A happy 100 subscribers.
Yeah. This is our 100 subscriber special. Should we do a sound test first?